Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Dropped his initial book and went off to teach in the Netherlands for like 10 years and then came back and was like, actually, everything I
Wait, no, I fucked it up. Back it up. Alright. Hello, boils and ghouls. It's your old pal Sick Part 2 here, along with a ghoul for fun and Steve Axie for another episode of Ghouly Gentlemen. I'm not doing it all the way because I have children asleep in the other room. We're back for another month of Horror Month on Ghouly Gentlemen. Love it. Missed it last year, so we got to make this Horror Month twice as good as last year's, which isn't hard because it didn't exist. We're already more successful.
like 100% more successful.
Right. So yes, we're here to kick off Horror Month, and Alfie chose our review topic for this week. What are we reviewing tonight, Alfie?
Yes. For this Horror Month, the first thing we're going to start off is a A24 movie called The Monster. Directed by Brian Bettino. This one I wanted to pick just because it was one of those things where I was looking for a bunch of different horror movies to watch. And once you've seen all the big names and you've gone through all the major releases, it gets quite hard, especially to find anything that's like of quality. So I was looking through a couple of things, and this one had pretty good word of mouth from what I was seeing. So I decided to watch it. I think it was earlier in this year. And it just always stuck with me since as something that like I don't see a lot of people talk about, but I think, at least for me, I'll see what you guys think. I think it does what it aims to do very simply, but at extremely high level, and I would like to get more people to maybe check it out.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I didn't love it or anything. I think the biggest thing for me is it's really hard for me to watch this and, like, not just go to the same point over and over again. So I'm going to do my best not to just say it past this one time. It was hard to watch this and not just think, okay, Cujo. It's not doing exactly the same thing on, like, a meta-narrative level. Like, the connection to, especially with the weakness of the creature being light, the monster in the dark that's afraid of the light, yada yada. But just like in the practicality of the plot, mother and child stuck in car, can't get out of car because of the threat outside, abandoned in a very isolated location. And it's not got a ton of similarities outside of that, but that is just such a predominant similarity that I've not seen played with again in horror movies, at least to the same extent. I've seen like other, shit situation survival movies, kind of like Open Water comes to mind, and that's a terrible movie no one should ever watch. But it just that thought just kept coming back to me over and over again as I was watching it. Like, just a lot of the same tension, a lot of the core ideas just connect back to Cujo for me. So it's got more going on with it that makes it distinct, but that just became very apparent as I was watching. I was like, oh, I'm going to try really hard not to just say, yeah, but Cujo.
How about you, Steve?
I thought this was fine. I like things about it, but Brian Bertino's work always kind of hits me in a weird place because I feel like he's always got like these really fun concepts and he's always got these really interesting thematic angles. But then when you sit down and watch his movies, they all feel like a lot of signifiers with no signification or no significance whatsoever. The Strangers does this for me a lot too. His first movie, where like I could sit here and write a book to you about like what The Strangers is a metaphor for, but God, is that movie boring as shit and not good. And every one of his movies kind of has that for me. The big problem I have with this one is the primary metaphor of what the monster is, and a symbol of the mom's addiction and the abuse that she lashes out on her kid and all that stuff. It's a really in-your-face obvious metaphor from the jump. By the end, he's just like ham-fisting at you like, do you get it? Do you get it? The mom is the monster. And that's fine. I you don't have to be subtle. But I feel like the actual narrative situation and the metaphor don't actually work together very well. And they're in conflict at several points. And I really don't think Bertino had any idea like what he was really trying to say with it beyond just the early artifice of the premise is the monster is the mom and her addiction. And so like Cujo's a good comparison point because I think Stephen King's doing sort of a similar thing, but that's a little bit more refined than this. I thought both actresses were really good. I thought the atmosphere and the practical monster effects were all really good. Just the idea of being stuck in the middle of the night in your car as a thing tries to attack you, like that's ripe with some good tension. But it's just as far as like what the movie was trying to say and what it was trying to do, I just had a lot of problems with that.
It's so funny. Like, I love when Steve does this because it just makes me feel like a fucking idiot. Because I'm like, oh yeah, of course he's right. Did not even remotely cross my mind the whole fucking time. It's
the monster was the friends we made along the way.
That's really funny. Because I'm just sitting there the whole time watching this, and I'm like, you know, it's interesting to watch as a parent because this is a fucking depressing ass movie. And again,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna do this all night, so I'm sorry. But I am gonna compare it to Cujo because I imagine there is someone out there that is as bothered by the female lead in Cujo being unfaithful to her husband, and them kind of watching that movie and thinking, fucking good, you deserve it, bitch. I hope your kid gets out, but fuck this bitch. Because that was kind of my thing the whole time watching this. Like, yeah, no, she just can this thing just fucking kill her so we can get the kid out of this situation and then I'll be happy? I was like, for a good while, especially when she was like talking about leaving with the torch, I was really wondering if they were going to have the balls, which I'm glad they didn't because it would have made me hate the movie, but I would have like respected it in a way. I was wondering if they're going to have the balls to just have her abandon her child and take the torch, because it just seems like something a really selfish, addicted person would do. And they didn't do that. They went for a more typical, by the numbers horror movie ending. And I liked that aspect of it. I don't think it would have been a very ballsy choice, but it's something that they clearly just didn't want to do, and they were telling a different story. But that, I think if it maybe had ended that way, where it was kind of playing with like, okay, why are you going off into the woods with a torch, though, was kind of the thought I was having. If they had gone that direction with it, I think it might have like made that metaphor more succinct to, idiots like me, Steve.
I remember like it was like maybe 20-30 minutes before the end, it just kept cutting back and forth between her being passed out drunk on the bathroom and then the same match cut to her coughing up blood after the monster attack. Like, no, I get it. I understand. The monster is addiction. You don't have to keep doing this.
Just didn't.
Apparently you do.
Apparently you do.
Apparently you do.
Have you considered that I'm an idiot? No, because like I did see metaphors with the monster, but for me it was much more like the traditional thing in the woods, the unknown force, and again I just saw it more in that parallel to Cujo of just the parent trying to protect their kid in like the most hopeless situation, and like this kind of trying to be not a redemption story, but to show that like she does, even though she's awful to her, she does still actually care about her kid. She's not just going to leave her behind, and there's like a lot of tension with that. Where it's like, why did you go out there? You don't listen to me, and no, you can't leave me behind. Blah blah blah. Like those scenes just kind of hammered that aspect of it home to me. I wasn't really thinking about the addiction thing. I just thought they were showing all the background stuff because just trying to really get you to fucking hate this bitch.
Yeah.
I kind of hated her almost from the get-go when they're like, you know, when you see the kid getting up and making her own breakfast and packing her own bag, that's fine. But when she started cleaning up the beer bottles and doing the dishes, I was like, no. I fucking hate this parent already. And then just everything from there on just got worse and worse and worse, and I just started really, really hate this bitch. And I think that's, you know, clearly intentional. But it I don't know, just as a parent myself, there's moments when you have kids where you have to be the bad guy. You have to be very disciplinary. And it sucks in the moment, but like you know it's for a good purpose. But there's also moments where you're just frustrated and you like fuck up and go overboard on the discipline. The other night we were all riding bikes and Leah's doing really good, but the one thing she's still working on and having a hard time with is just getting the start off, especially because of the way the brakes work on a kid's bike. And we're sitting there waiting, and she keeps trying, and Haley's like, Leah, come on, do it. And I'm like, don't rush her. And it's like, it's just moments like that where like you get a little frustrated and you kind of lose it in the moment, and sometimes you need your partner there for that. And so it's especially difficult when you're the only one, even for just a day, much less if you're a single parent. So like I don't know, I understand certain levels of the behavior, and it's one of those things where as a parent you begin to like question yourself, and you kind of beat up on yourself when you do overreact. But then in like, I don't know, just seeing the way that she fucking treated this kid, I was just like, I just fucking hate this bitch. Maybe I'm the greatest parent on earth, actually. Just fucking kid. When she said she was gonna go check for the keys, and then it just ripped her out of the window, I was like, oh, fucking good. And then the ambulance showed up, I was like, god damn it. There are a few people I've wanted to see die in a horror movie more than this lead. Which, I mean, you know, I think that is definitely the intention of the director. So I guess good job, but it was not an enjoyable experience in that regard. Just waiting for this character to get fucking killed by the monster.
It's not a fun time, for sure.
Yeah, it's a heavy movie. Like, again, that what I was talking about with her fucking picking up beer bottles, that's in the first, like, 3 minutes of the movie. So I kind of knew, like, right from the get-go, this is going to be a heavy fucking picture to watch. But yeah, it just... somehow it got worse as it kept going on. The scene where she slaps her, I was just like actually getting upset. It's just so.
Alfie, did you dislike her as well? Because I feel like I'm in the minority in that I didn't actually dislike her, but I'm curious if you did.
I didn't dislike her either.
Okay, all right.
I think a lot of it. I get it from Ian's perspective that he's a parent and we're not.
Yeah.
So I think it's at a different level for him. For me, I think what this movie did a really good job, and I think the main thing that I like it for is the performances from the two leads. I think they do such a great job at making me believe how complicated this relationship is, and like it makes me believe that they have this very like, just from looking at the ages of the characters, you can tell that this she had this kid when she was super fucking young. Like, she was not equipped in any way, shape, or form to be able to look after this kid. And then this kid had to grow up and become her own caretaker, effectively. To deal with that at such a young age is a really tough thing to deal with. And on paper, it's very easy to have the same reaction like I think you do, Ian, where it's just like this irredeemable, like, just you're a scumbag for putting a child through this. And I definitely feel like that the movie does a great job of like letting you paint that picture of like, this is such a fucking awful situation. I hope you buy it, because why are you treating your child like this? You're a grown adult. But the way that the performances play off each other, it just makes me feel sad for everyone in this situation of like, no one wanted this life. This is not helping anyone, but somehow, some way through it, you do still buy that she loves her kid. And like, and again, she's not a good person for this kid. She is a terrible caretaker, and she isn't showing that. But I think there is like that extra bit of tragedy, especially by the end, where she does try and make an amend to try and help the kid out and trying to make a self-sacrificial move. And then the kind of irony of the self-sacrifice doesn't really do anything in the end. It's such the kid still has to get themselves out of the situation. I think all of that comes together to paint a really kind of nuanced portrayal of that sort of very real situation that you don't see depicted a lot, especially with this level of, like I said, like care and nuance, to where they're a bad guy for sure, but I don't think it's necessarily trying to make it like... This is with horror movies, a lot of the time you can go to see the people die to get kind of catharsis from it, so you see like a lot of archetypes which are meant to be like
the frat boy rapist kind of vibe and
yeah,
stuff.
exactly,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Like people that won't be missed, right? And I think this person is also someone that necessarily wouldn't be missed by society, but I like that the movie takes the effort to maybe make you question a little bit, like, should we be having this feeling to the situation, or should we be trying some kind of, is there something we're missing where someone else could have intervened here and someone else could have helped because no one was equipped to deal with this? I don't think it's necessarily wrong to have that reaction. I think it's really good and a kind of a testament to why I like this movie, that it doesn't make you ask those questions, it makes you feel something. Like, it's very rare for a horror movie to engage me emotionally at all, so that this did... it gets a lot of credit to me. I also have never had any experience with Cujo, so maybe it felt a little bit more original as a result. But those are just my stances on that aspect of it, of like how deplorable she is. I like that they don't hold back any punches, but I also like that they don't make it so black and white to where like she's just an out and right villain.
I agree with Alfie. I agree with you in the sense that I think that she's not a good person, but she is sympathetic. And I think early on there's that line where she's basically dropping the hint that like where she's taking the kid, she's not coming back. That like this relationship they know is bad and they are about to give up on it. And all of this transpires in the midst of that goodbye. And then that goodbye is very literalized when she just straight up dies at the end. What I guess what I'll disagree with both of you on, though, is I don't think this movie is as much of a gut punch as it thinks it is. I think it actually pulls its punches a lot. And I think what trips me up about this whole thing is the mom character. I'm sympathetic to her. I like her performance a lot. I think she does a great job, and I think there is this sort of bipolarness between her and the kid where like the kid is clearly frustrated with her at many points justifiably, but she still wants her mom and she still wants her mom to be what a mom should be. The mom is very clearly bad at being a mom, is abusive, has an addiction, but she still very clearly loves her kid, and they just come out in complicated and messy ways. But I think the big problem is the movie doesn't really know who the protagonist is, and it is just on like a script level, it seems like it's the kid, but all of the important sort of character beats are supposed to be for the mom, and we're almost never in the mom's head. there's a lot of stuff where it seems like we're supposed to get her read on the situation, and we never do. All the way up through the final line of the movie, which I think is just terrible, where what the kid learns from this experience does not make any sense to me whatsoever when you put it together with what the metaphor was supposed to be about. But we can get to that part later.
Well, no, see, that's kind of that. I'm sorry, you've got more to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, but what I was gonna say was the thing about the mom is I think it really pulls its punches because I feel like we don't actually see the gravity of this relationship literalized in the movie the way I think it should be. The thing about her specific problem, the fact that she is an addict, the fact that she slapped her kid, the fact that she's like the kid. There's that really kind of gut wrenching scene where the kid's like hauled up in a tent up top, and she's hiding the car keys because she doesn't want the mom and the boyfriend to drunk drive to get more alcohol, right? Like all of that feels like it's supposed to be building towards much bigger consequences that never actually arrive. When the car spins out of control, the kid's not the one that's hurt. The mom is. When the monster comes and attacks people, it's the EMT and it's the tow truck guy. It's never other people in the vicinity of their life, and it's very rarely like the daughter herself. I feel like as far as the monster as this metaphor for her addiction, the reason it doesn't map on to her character very well is the monster never really does the stuff that people in this situation actually would do, which is hurt the other people in their life. And when you get all these opportunities for the monster to do that, it never actually does them. A lot of it just ends up being self-inflicted, and or it attacks or kills characters that we really have no emotional relationship to whatsoever. And the mom doesn't really get a chance to verbalize her feelings very often until basically the very end when she dies. And I feel like in that sense, it's kind of pulling its punches.
I would maybe push back just a little bit on the idea of the monster not attacking the people in their lives. I think you're right about that interpretation of it, but I do think there is something to the people that the monster kills, because this could just be like Cujo, where no one ever shows up except for like that one sheriff. But this could just be like Cujo, where they're just alone the whole time and they just are stuck in the situation. I think like slowly introducing, first we get the tow truck driver and then we get the ambulance crew. I think having the monster kill them in context of it being a metaphor for addiction, it's killing their hopes. And I think that's got maybe a little something to it. You're right, though, it could be literalized a little bit better. Like, she called her dad, so if you really wanted to, like, the dad and girlfriend could show up. It would be a little, like, past the point of logic if the mom's boyfriend showed up, but you could conceivably do that, too. But I do think there is maybe a little something to the ambulance driver and the tow truck driver showing up.
I think you're right, but this is again why I feel like it's pulling its punches, where I feel like it's sort of teasing this idea, but it's never really committing to it. I think fundamentally the problem with this movie is the situation and what's interesting about it doesn't map onto what the movie wants to be about, and these two things are running in opposite directions. And there's entertaining stuff on both sides of it, but they never actually meet in the middle somewhere to make something great.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to push back, or not necessarily push back, but just like offer why I didn't necessarily connect the dots for the monster is addiction, is just that scene at the end seems to be more about like the monster is the fear in the dark, the creature in the woods, the thing under the bed. That line and just the like magical realism of, no, of course the light scares it, because monsters are afraid of the light. They can only live in the dark. Like, those aspects of just very literally what people believed about monsters, the movie being called The Monster, to just show a generic creature, never give any kind of explanation for what the fuck it is, how it really works. It's just, like, the only logic to it is the afraid of the light thing, and that's just such a primal notion. Those ideas were the things that I latched onto rather than the addiction metaphor, which I think is there, and I think it's interesting that it's both. to varying degrees, but the line of her leaving the woods at the end is definitely the thing that like stuck with me the most, and why I guess I was so obsessed with or really picking up on that interpretation as opposed to the addiction thing.
I think what you're saying is there, but I think the movie thinks it's the addiction metaphor. It opens with her cleaning up the beer bottles and being the parent to her own parent. The movie is littered with flashbacks that highlight the fact that she's an alcoholic. The movie has all of these jump cuts between the mom's alcoholism and the mom in the moment being terrorized by the monster. I think structurally, it is really, really trying to give you the impression that the flashbacks of the addiction are visually connected and coupled to the monster. And so these two things are going hand in hand. And the reason I really hate that last line is from the first scene of the movie, the kid's never in denial about the existence of darker things in the world. She's never afraid of them either. She is the one who is being the adult in the situation when she shouldn't have to be. If that line was going to come from anybody, it should have come from the mom, because the mom was the one who is in denial and back and forth about whether or not she actually has a problem. And sometimes she sees herself for what she is and sometimes she doesn't. So like, I feel like by the end, what the movie wants to be about and what the movie sort of feels like it ends up being about become two very different things, and it just ends up bothering me. If there was more opportunity for the mom to be a co-lead and not just the other person in the room, I think it maybe would have worked more. But I think as it stands, there's so much weight on the kid's perspective on these things that the larger metaphor of the addiction gets underserved. And by that point, it ultimately is saying a lot less than I think it wants to. This is also in the peak or the early peak of so many horror movies that we made, particularly A24 has produced so many horror movies about moms and their kids, or the horrors of motherhood. This is in that really rich tapestry of everything from like Hereditary and The Babadook all the way up to more recent movies like Immaculate and the Omen prequel. And we've done this idea so much, and I feel like we've done it so well that when you put it side by side by one of those movies, I feel like it feels to me more like a riff on a thing that was successful as opposed to a thing that's trying to examine its own unique idea.
Okay. Alpha, you've been kind of quiet. What is your take on the dynamic of the monster? Do you read it just purely as the addiction metaphor, or do you think it is like a mix of the classic idea of a monster? What's your read on that?
Yeah, there's a lot of things to cover that I wanted to respond to. I just kind of wanted you guys to let you get your thoughts out. So I don't think it's necessarily one thing or the other. I think it's just the prediction in the same way that I think the performances are layered. I think when you're a kid that's dealing with a parent that's alcoholic, sometimes it's easy to kind of make the alcohol like an outside force kind of thing. Like, oh, if I just get rid of this, then you'll be normal. Because there's moments where you're fine. There's moments where you don't go into this and then you're okay. And you have that scene where they're trying to celebrate her being sober, and then she's just kind of hanging outside of the fridge, and it's like heartbreaking because that's like instantaneous like defeat. And I think there's some of that in there as well. I think there is that kind of just primordial like fear of the dark monsters out there. And I think there is just the internal addiction thing. I think it's playing with all of these ideas. I think the central conceit is the addiction, but I feel like where a lot of movies that I feel like that tackle a lot of these things kind of like triple down on just one central idea and kind of make everything all about that, and can do that effectively. I think there are also some negatives to that, where it can feel like everything is, you're being made aware of the artifice of the movie making experience, and it doesn't feel like you're watching a movie, it feels like you're taking like a lecture. Whereas I feel like this, because it's playing with a bunch of different ideas and is kind of interweaving them, not incredibly masterfully, but it is doing that. I think it makes it feel like a more complete experience where it doesn't feel necessarily that I'm just going to this for one specific idea. You can walk away with a couple different interpretations of what it is, and they're not necessarily invalidated because the creator is like very specifically being like, oh no, it is this specifically. So in that aspect is where I kind of stand. The other place I kind of stand is I feel like the idea here of this relationship being something that's like very popular at this time period, I think that is true. However, I feel like this is, out of all those movies that have been mentioned, I think this is the one time where I actually buy it, that this is actually a mother and a daughter going through a really hard relationship and a really hard time, and that being the core kind of appeal of the film is those performances. And a nature of that, I think, comes down to is I think this being so small budget. And we talk a little bit about this when we did the fan film reviews about like knowing what to focus on in order to make your money kind of work and like the scope of it. I think how that handles it and decides to let the emphasis be on these two characters. That's where I disagree with Steve as well. I do think the mother is very much a co-protagonist. I think this is very much two people's story. I don't think this is just one person, and we're kind of following. I think the mother has her point in the story. She bows out of it, but I don't think her presence is fat. And I think we get the perspective of her and the kid throughout the flashbacks, and we kind of alternate and see kind of what I was saying, where we're talking about like it's a very difficult situation because two people can both, like again, the kid didn't sign up for this, but I don't think the mom is implied to have signed up for this willingly either. Like I think it's a very complicated situation, and kind of you've heard from different angles. Outside of that, I think the main thing that I do think is like a little bit of a flaw, which does go with what you were saying earlier, Steve, is I do think the movie, maybe because it's trying to cover a lot of different things and kind of like, again, layer on a couple of themes while having one central thing, you can have that thing that it does get lost in the interpretation and maybe isn't as effective as it could be. The final line hitting well for Ian and not hitting well for you, I feel like kind of like maybe speaks to the fact that, well, maybe there's a flaw there. If two people are coming away from the final line with very different reactions, ideally you should be coming away with the same kind of thing. So those would be my initial thoughts to everything you guys said.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, I'm fine with other people having different interpretations of the movie. I don't think that's a problem. I just feel like watching the movie doesn't have a good idea of which idea it wants to go after. It wants to, like you said, it sort of wants to have its cake and eat it too, where, like, it's just this one very simple monster movie premise, but it's also this other story about addiction. And these two things sometimes run in parallel to each other, but a lot of times they're going in different directions. And I think that's kind of the ultimate problem, where you can have one interpretation or the other, but each of those interpretations kind of hits a roadblock at a certain point because the movie's not committing enough to one or the other.
Gotcha. Yeah. I don't know if I necessarily felt that or not. I didn't love the movie, but I didn't feel like that was from a lack of identity or a lack of like being sure of itself. But I don't know. There's just something, just a little something missing to me, and I guess maybe if I'd caught up on the addiction metaphor as the monster. Oh shit. Hello.
Yep.
Hopefully that doesn't happen again. If I'd caught up on that, maybe that would have made it feel more cohesive and satisfying to me. As is, I'm just a big dumb idiot.
I will say again that I feel like this isn't a unique problem with the monster, in my opinion. I think that this is a problem with all of Brian Bertino's movies. I think everything he does is anchored in a really good premise with a eerie sense of realism, with a lot of grit that feels like it's couching on a really dark, really primal idea, and then he always, just in my experience, kind of shits the bed with it. The Strangers is a really good example. Another one of those god-awful movies just came out, and it's marginally better than the last one, but that's not saying much. But the first Strangers, when that came out in 2008, there was a big deal made about it being based on like a real murder, and there was a lot of viral marketing about that and teasing that the Strangers was a true story, and like it opened with this title card of like X number of random murders happen on any given day or whatever, right? Like it's really trying to build this up.
Hold on, just 1 second for clarification. Is the Strangers the one where like the people come knock on the door and ask for someone that isn't there?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So when that movie starts, it actually opens as like this really tense drama where this couple had just been at a wedding, and the guy proposes to his girlfriend and she says no, and then they come back to the house that they were staying in, and it's just super awkward and super tense, and like you could see that there is this real emotional drama here about like these two people that just don't know what to do in this situation, that they'd feel not at home and they feel ill at ease, and that's when the people knock on the door and then break into the house and try to kill them and all that. And as you're watching that movie, it's a really clear statement about, at that time, the sort of obsession with violent crime statistics going up, and the idea that you could randomly get murdered in the suburbs, and the rise of true crime and all that. But it's also like this cogent story about the Great Recession, and this idea that family and home stability and security wasn't a thing anymore. And there's a lot of good writing about that. But then you sit down and watch that 90-minute movie, and it's boring as shit. And like halfway through, it just abandons all the interesting drama, and then there's a sequel that just feels like an extended action sequence attached to the first one, and then it just kind of loses full steam. And that's the kind of thing I notice with all of his other movies. Like The Dark and the Wicked has this problem too. This movie has this problem where I feel like Bertino is the kind of guy that he's really sure of how he wants to like set up what kind of setting he wants to explore, or what kind of fundamental idea he has. He's always really good for like a pitch, but then it comes to making the actual movie, and it's like the pitch hasn't been fleshed out enough, so he just keeps adding other things to it and hoping that it gels, and it almost never does for me.
Do you think he would be like a really good director for like, I don't know, like The Twilight Zone or something like a
something just kind of short
something
form where he can just get his like weird sensibilities out and not overstay his welcome?
Yeah, because like that's kind of sounds like what you're describing. Like he's really good at thinking of a premise, but you know, like you meet these people in real life all the time. It's like they have an idea for a movie or a TV show or something, but it's like you ask them like 4 or 5 questions about it, and then they're just their idea doesn't have any legs, kind of thing.
Yep.
And it's like, no, I mean it's a solid premise, but then what? How are you going to make this an hour and a half long movie without it being boring?
And that's kind of the essence of this, because I feel like kid and mom alone in the middle of the night in a car when a monster attacks, so potent, so rich, so good for tension, so good for drama. Practical monster effects where he's just ripping through shit. He looks like a weird mutated dog thing. All that, really sick. Really here for it. That a 90-minute movie does not make in his hands.
Yeah. I'm not sure what else you could add, because like one of my biggest problems with a lot of horror movies is there's this tense relationship between like setting up your characters and your world and making sure we actually care about everybody so that we're not just waiting for them to get killed, and making a boring ass movie where you're just waiting for the fucking monster to show up. You know? Yeah. That's always such a hard line to hit in a horror movie, because yes, you do want to be invested in the characters, but not to the point that it's like becoming a detriment and you're just waiting for them to die. Mm-hmm. Because you just spent too long setting them up. It's just always such a tight wire to walk.
And to the monster's credit, I think it does a good job of that, of like getting right into the car accident and the monster. I mean, pretty quickly, right? Like it's maybe 15, 20 minutes before any of that happens.
You know, one detail I really liked about all of that is you get the fake out that would have been like the movie could have actually just ended here, with them driving away in the ambulance, and then the monster just like booms them back off the road.
That's really
that,
good.
Like,
yeah,
and that like creates the context of that's what it did to him the first time. They didn't just swerve and hit the wolf, because they start swerving and moving before you even see the wolf, before they even see the wolf. The hitting the wolf is incidental.
Yeah.
They get hit off the road first, and so it like creates the context of, nah, this is just what this thing does. It just knocks the car off the road and then kills whoever's inside. And like they, it'd been a fucking sick ass scene if you wanted to pad the movie out after you set up something like that. When she gets out of the ambulance, you should have just seen a bunch of fucking cars, because they already established that like nobody's on this road. You're not gonna be, the cops won't be able to see you when they come if you stay in the ambulance. That would have been such a good fucking like horror movie moment if they just got out of the ambulance and they're just in like a fucking pile of
like
overgrown
a junkyard
cars.
kind of situation of all the cars.
Yeah, that would have been fucking sick. That probably would have been beyond the budget to do, but I don't know. You just fucking figure it out. Because that would have been a sick ass moment. I'm writing a better movie right now. I do also, just in regards to the creature, the monster himself, I do quite like that the thing that kills him is literally being a light. Becoming light actually kills him, and I also appreciate the girl for double tapping. Too many. Anyone in this listening to this podcast, if you find yourself in a horror movie situation and you kill the thing, you're the last girl. I need you to double tap. I know you're exhausted and frightened, and if nothing else I've ever said sticks with you, double tap is the thing you need to remember. In action movies too, but especially in horror movie situations. Oh. It looked like he was already dead, and then you shot him 9 more times. Yeah, this podcaster told me to double tap, so...
Exactly. That's the geeky gentleman.
The monster I also just really, really like the design and the effects work for. I like that it's not like a small wolf-like creature. Like, it is actually genuinely kind of massive looking.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was really excited that it was practical. I like that they kind of like, you get some glimpses at it, but like it's kind of like it's hard to get a good look at the thing until like right at the very end.
Yeah.
I think they handled that really well, especially again like making your dollar go really far. Like I feel like the fact that I forget exactly. I think this movie wasn't. It was maybe like $3 million dollars for the entire thing. I think the fact that they managed to get as much out of that with that monster and to have it like to rip apart cars and stuff and an ambulance and stuff. I think that's really impressive for the speed they give it as well. Like again, just camera tricks, sound effect cues, like making it do the work for you, and I think that's all really impressive. I'm just on like a base technical standard. So that was something that I liked quite a bit was how they handled the monster.
I like it for the most part. This movie suffers from just like a thing we've been dealing with since like very end of the 2000s and throughout the 2010s, where I saw a great meme about this where Elijah Wood on the set of Lord of the Rings Two Towers asked the director of photography, is this scene supposed to be at night, but there's like all these blue lights? And the director's like, yeah, because it's night. It's like, yeah, but where's the blue lights come from? It doesn't matter. It's night, but we still need to see what's going on. Versus now, like every movie, well, it's night, so it's just fucking pure black on screen. I think it works better here because of the context of it being a horror movie, in particular when you have a creature that is afraid of the light. But at the same time, I don't know. Blue lights, I don't care what the fucking reasoning is. Night is blue in movies. Let's just all accept that and no one ever question it again so we can all actually see what's going on.
I agree completely on that.
It's definitely this weird modern trend where it feels like we just fucking forgot how to shoot night scenes at this point, because it's all always just pitch black with a little bit of yellow, and there's no attention paid to like what you can and can't see and how the shot's framed. Another movie that came out recently that I really liked, Weapons, was largely a really well shot movie, with the exception of all the night scenes, which all kind of looked like garbage. And I always go back to like how small of a budget Halloween was, and how much shit that they had to do to get things like leaves blowing in camera. And even today, the night scenes in that movie are like some of the prettiest of any horror movie ever. And it's so effective because you have light in the darkness, you've got shadows, and then you've got like Michael's face popping out of the darkness. You just can't do that shit anymore. I know you can't, because they tried in the last 3 Halloween movies and they all looked like garbage.
Yeah, I think the invention of HDR really fucked up a lot of things. When people have to color grade for HDR, they can't color grade for, they don't know if the TV is going to be in HDR or SDR when it goes to home video, so they have to just make it all a very specific color gambit, and it's just like it always looks like fucking garbage. Like I really, really hate that. It's infected movies now at this point too, because they all know they're going to go to streaming. It really annoys me. I wish night scenes were good again.
It's so frustrating. Just on a regular basis watching movies and be like, I don't know what's happening. My TV's brightness is all the way up. I have no idea what's happening.
I mean, I think we can really... Don't blame streaming. Let's blame the first one to commit this sin. AVPR, the movie no one has ever actually seen.
It's just 2 hours of darkness.
It really is. Lots of people have watched that movie. No one has ever seen it.
One other thing, now that we're just kind of talking around the movie a little bit, one other thing I did want to talk about is this trend that I mentioned before about all these movies we've gotten lately about, and I say lately, but I mean like last 10 years or so, about motherhood or parents and children, and all of these movies that really focus on that confrontational, sometimes problematic relationship and why it's such a prevalent theme. Last year we had like 5 or 6 movies that were all just about like the horrors of pregnancy, which makes a lot of sense in a post Roe v. Wade world where you're watching all these movies, some by female directors, all about like how horrifying this process actually is. But then you go back to something like The Babadook, which came out a couple years before this, and it's all about the Babadook gets more powerful the more you pretend it doesn't exist, because the Babadook is denial, it's guilt, it's not being able to reconcile that difficult relationship you have with your kid and you now that you're alone in the world. We've been doing a lot of that kind of stuff, and I always find it really interesting. Weapons is also a really good movie about the whole idea of how we try to conspiracy theory our way out of things like school shootings, how we blame things like satanic panics and stuff like that, and they all offer sort of cheap excuses, but at the end of the day, the kids just have to live with the trauma for the rest of their life, because that's not really a satisfying answer. So all of that I find really interesting. I don't think we've gotten a lot of like great horror movies the last couple of years, with a very few exceptions, but it is interesting that it seems like everyone in that genre space is all on the exact same wavelength. Yeah.
And I think maybe a lot of that has to do with not necessarily the creators, but I feel like studios will see trends and they'll be like, oh, movies about motherhood doing really well lately for low amount of money. That's what people want to see.
See, I like when the studios kind of hop on trends, but the creators involved are smart enough to do like the other side of the trend. Because we haven't really seen this. Like Steve mentioned, all the movies about like motherhood and stuff. I don't think there was like a corresponding movie put out in the same way like Alien is a film all about like the horrors of the female experience, and like just femininity versus rape culture, or the idea of rape. So let's make another movie. Okay, Predator. It's all about masculinity. It's just the most fucking masculine, manly man movie you could possibly make. I haven't seen like the response to the movies about motherhood by making a movie that's like unique to fatherhood, and maybe that's less true. I don't know. The Wolfman came out. I don't know if it was good.
It was
Probably
terrible.
not.
It was awful.
Bad.
It was, to its credit, it was a movie about fatherhood. It was just really
It looked really bad.
It was so bad. No, I mean you think I'm being hard on this movie's metaphor. That movie's metaphor is fucking incoherent. Because near as I could read it, and I was trying, man, I was trying. You know me. Nearest I could read it is if you have a toxic parent, it is only a matter of time before you become your toxic parent, in which case your kid just has to shoot you. That's how that movie ends. She just fucking shoots him in the face. It's really weird.
Interesting. I don't know. I don't know what you do with that.
It's very bad. It's not a good movie. To that point, though, I mean, one of the other things you notice in a lot of these movies about parenthood or motherhood is the questions about the absence of a father or the absence of a partner that's there and whose absence is the very thing that's making the relationship so tense in the first place. There was a movie that came out earlier this year that is actually really good called Woman in the Yard, where a woman and her husband are driving home one day and they get into a car accident and the husband dies. And the mom is left with like a leg injury. And then one day at their house, as like she's trying to be a mom to these two kids, but she's not doing really well, a woman is just sitting in their yard. And as the movie goes on, you realize that the woman in the yard is the manifestation of this woman's desire to kill herself because she just simply cannot keep living this life of her husband being dead and having to force herself to be a good mom when she knows she isn't. And it's really bleak stuff. But that relationship between her and her kids and how difficult that is when you're on your own, and how much you can rightly blame yourself for versus not, ends up being really complex and really interesting.
I saw that and I thought that one looked stupid.
I did too.
I saw the trailer and was like, this looks dumb.
I did too. I thought that looked like garbage. And then there was a few critics who I really like saying like, no, you should go see it. It's fucking good. And then I went to see it. I'm like, oh shit, this is really good.
I'm curious to check that one out. That's one I want to give a shot, just because of you, Steve, when you told us about it.
Yeah, I'll send you. I did a little write up on it when it came out, but like genuinely, I think it's a really good movie.
Send over.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're kind of done talking about this. Are we good to go on to ratings? Do we think, or is there anything lingering with the monster? Oh wait, I did have one other thing. I get why they titled it what they titled it, but God, that made it a pain in the ass to look up on anything.
Oh, I know, right?
When I was 2005 a lean serial killer movie and shit, and I'm like, Jesus Christ.
I had that exact same problem when I was trying to find it the first time, because people were like, oh, I like the monster. I was like, is it the anime? Is it we're really...
There's like legitimately 600 movies that are all just called The Monster that come out every year.
So I agree with that. I was like, damn, man, this is tough.
Like, we were not gaming for search engine optimization with that one.
That's the true fault of the movie. All right. Yeah, let's go ahead and go into ratings then. I'll give this movie 3 out of 5. What fucking tow truck driver locks their car? I do appreciate that it didn't actually, it was like, that would have just solved the whole fucking problem. But, like, but seriously, what fucking tow truck driver locks their goddamn car?
Yeah.
I'll give it... I'm between a 2 and a 3, so I'll just split the difference, and I'll give it a 2.5 out of 5 teeth that are too big for a dog.
That's a good one. For me, again, like I said, I quite enjoyed this one. A little harder to please with horror movies, so anytime one that actually gets a good response out of me, I always like to give it a good go. So for me, I'll say this one's a 4 out of 5. Failed sobrieties.
Damn.
Alrighty.
She didn't even make it 4 days.
Yeah. God damn, that is so bad too.
I know, but she didn't.
Alright, yeah, so that was a good time. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Coolly Gentlemen. Until next time, I'm the philosopher.
I am the killer for fun. No.
And I am haunting your dreams.
And we are your ghouly gentlemen. And we will be dissecting things. Get it? Because it's still like when you review things, you're like doing it.
Hey, the double entendre.